Hello, Telvanni here, and today I want to talk about Archmage support. In my last video, Mana Stacking Lightning Conduit Elementalist, I shared with you a potential league start idea. Again, I say idea here because it's impossible to test the build properly until the patch drops, and it wasn't up to my standard to post as a true build guide. Anyway, that video was incredibly popular, and I'm glad you've all been enjoying it. However, I, like several other content creators, quite notably Palstron, have been approaching mana stacking under the assumption that things like Inspiration, reduced mana cost on the tree and gear, and Hierophant's Sanctuary of Thought would apply to the additional mana costs incurred by running Archmage support. This would make mana costs very manageable, even on a league start character for most Archmage builds. Unfortunately, we might have been getting it wrong. And again, I cannot stress this enough, the operative word here is might. If we take another look at the Archmage changes, it says, no longer has supported skills have base mana cost equal to 5% of unreserved maximum mana if that value is higher, and instead now has supported skills have added mana cost equal to 5% of unreserved mana. The wording here is a bit ambiguous, and we don't have any other modifiers that are phrased exactly like this. At face value, this seems to imply that Archmage will no longer replace your base mana cost, but instead be added to the base mana cost on top of the skill's existing base mana cost. For example, Lightning Conduit has a base skill cost of 16 at level 20. Currently, if we run an Archmage support on a character with 10,000 unreserved maximum mana, this skill cost is replaced, and our base cost becomes 5% of 10,000, which is 500. This is then affected by things like more cost multipliers from our skill gems, and reductions like Inspiration. It is even affected by less multipliers, such as Hierophant's Sanctuary of Thought. And with enough reduction, it's possible to reduce the mana costs quite low. This is still completely possible if the Archmage added cost is applied to the base skill cost. Similar to how damage calculations work. Damage equals base damage plus added damage. Then it is multiplied by the total increases and reductions to damage. And finally, it is multiplied by more/less damage multipliers. So working under this assumption, our base mana cost would become Lightning Conduit's existing 16 cost plus Archmage's 5% for a total of 516 base mana cost on a character with 10,000 maximum mana, which again, that 516 value would have the possibility to be reduced, potentially all the way down to 0 with enough percent cost reduction passives and gear. On the other hand, if the new Archmage functions more akin to the non-channeling skills have -7 to total mana cost, as found on Elrion crafted jewelry, well, then we're potentially in some trouble. This would cause the 500 additional mana cost to be applied after all of our mana cost reductions, meaning that there is effectively no way to reduce mana costs and making sustain quite difficult early in the league, to the point that many mana stacking league start ideas might not even be viable. Hello, Telvanni from the future here. Right as I had finished rendering this video and was about to upload it to YouTube, I saw a comment from Skoink2469. They pointed out that Divine Blessing has similar wording to the updated Archmage support, and while it's not identical to the upcoming Archmage changes, it could potentially clue us in on how the added mana costs will function. If we very quickly jump back into PoB, you can see that our Wrath Aura, which had a total mana pool of 10,000, costs 50%, or 5,000 mana. When it is affected by the additional cost of Divine Blessing support, this climbs to 5,233. However, this additional cost of Divine Blessing is applied before multipliers, and is therefore subject to changes from things like Inspiration and reduced cost. This makes me hopeful, but we still can't know for certain. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, we just don't know which way Archmage is going to work. The patch notes are, again, ambiguous. On the one hand, it doesn't say supported skills have added base mana cost, equal to 5% of unreserved mana, but at the same time, it also doesn't say supported skills have added total mana cost, like it does on the Elvion crafts. It simply says supported skills have added mana cost equal to 5% of unreserved mana. Ultimately, the way Archmage support functions in 3.24 is going to be incredibly impactful on the types of builds that are viable at League start. If you're thinking of running a mana stacking build as your League starter, under the assumption that you'll be able to reduce your mana costs, I'd strongly recommend you have a backup plan just in case. I was overwhelmed by the number of people interested in my Lightning Conduit mana stacker idea, so I'll probably be putting out a concept video for a non-Archmage version in the next couple of days. This way, if Archmage costs are not reducible, players can still get an idea for how to potentially League start Lightning Conduit. I'm sure we'll know exactly how Archmage functions within the first few hours or so of the League, as someone on Standard will probably test it out for us. So you should be able to adjust course on your build very quickly if it turns out Archmage costs are going to be too high to sustain. Additionally, I've reached out to GGG for clarification on how Archmage support is going to work in 3.24. However, as I'm a relatively smaller content creator, I don't have a direct line of access to them, so I'm not expecting a reply. If by some stroke of luck they do respond to me and answer my question, I'll be sure to update you guys in the comments below, so keep an eye out for that if you're interested. Anyway, thank you for watching, good luck with your League, and I'll see you in the next one.